joining me in person, finally, Stephen K. Bannon, host of the War Room Pandemic. This is the hottest show in America.
Are this special wipe down?
Yes, sir.
I thought we're in a pandemic. I know you're a pandemic. You're a pandemic.
I wiped down with my mask.
You're a pandemic truther. I know that. But do I have proper?
You've got proper.
The Trump International Hotels get the highest standards going.
It does.
This place is it's amazing.
Right.
Now I'm at the John Fredericks Radio Network, section of the thing. I just want to make sure these headphones and this mic was wiped down.
Well, the mic wasn't wiped down.
As you know, I'm not a truther.
I know you're not truther, but look, I got a mask.
You look amazing. How much weight you lost?
I've lost a lot of weight because
you've lost. Is this the pandemic? All you did is whine and moan about the pandemic. Has made a new man out of you.
Actually, my wife put me on a diet. That's why I lost weight. She's like, "Look, dude, we want you around."
You're a walking comorbidity.
I know, right? And if I get it, she said, look, your chances of survival are excellent because you're still under 65. So she's got the whole math worked out.
She's worked it out.
She did buy some new insurance, though.
Just saying. Hey, just saying.
Did you ever get this, Steve? I mean, you go home one day and she said, hey, sign this. And I'm like, what is it? She's like, well, I just got new $300,000 of
I'm gonna have a special screening of Double Indemnity. We're gonna do Double Indemnity screening with John Fredericks. Never just sign.
I mean, but that's kind of I kind of signed it.
Who's the
walked away and
beneficiary?
I thought to myself, why is she doing that?
Right.
Anyway, Steve, you look fabulous. You've also lost weight. I know you're drinking a lot of water, right?
Yeah, doing it all. Lost about 15 pounds. Another 30 to go.
You look great.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah,
you saw I was on Squawk this morning. May never be invited back.
Why not? What happened?
It was Runaway Train. You thought my Maria Bartiromo hit was
great.
No, this was pure Runaway Train. I think they tossed out one question. What do you think about China, United States? Boom. 9 minutes later, the guests are, the hosts are in shock. No, but it was good. I love doing the business shows.
This has been a fabulous summit so far. The Falkirk Center putting this on.
I tell you, on fire yesterday. It was a murder's row. I mean, you had a panel. First off, you started with your show. You lit it up. We had, I think we started around the world to start the thing with the protest of Chinese citizens and expatriates that are protesting Chinese embassies and consulates. I mean, what I loved about the new federal state and the whistleblowers, they were in Houston heckling. They were heckling the CCP workers at the consulate, yelling at them, "Get out!" Right? You're supposed to get out. And you had it all over the world. We had Canada, New Zealand, Australia, South Korea, France with these people. They're waving the American flag. They're waving their new flag. They're talking about all the defectors that are coming out. So you've seen an uprising of the Chinese people. Then we have Miles Grohl on. And then they started with the conference, Tom Cotton, right? You had Pillsbury. You had Spalding. You had Bill Gertz all day. Right, it just one after the other of just incredible senators and everybody talking about China's the main focus. I said on CNBC today that Andrew Ross Sorkin asked me flat out. He says, "Talk to me about the politics of this. How does this play out? The whole thing about the war strategy coming together with Barr and Pompeo and all of that." I said, "Hey, I've been very consistent with this. The path of victory in 2020 goes right through Beijing." Right. It was 16. I mean, there's the managed decline of our elites of our country is what drove Trump to the presidency. And now you just got to you've got, from O'Brien to Wray to Barr to Pompeo, you've laid out over 1 month what the plan is and the strategy. And on the other side of the coin, you've got the pandemic, but you also have Joe Biden. He understands how lethal this is. That's why he goes to Scranton and tries to remake himself as an economic populist and an economic nationalist. He never talks about Wilmington, Delaware. Never talks about really he's the center of. He understands he has to play to that, to try to get to those voters, particularly Democratic voters. There's a piece today in Politico by Tim Alberta that talks about white working class, but he talks about the voters that Biden has to get. Traditionally, he goes to Scranton and talks about the county of being hardcore working class Democrats and how. If Trump can hold that to maybe increase in that, he can be very competitive here, right? And maybe win this thing, win Pennsylvania. And so Biden knows what he has to sell and where he has to sell it. He's got to sell himself as a populist. He's got to sell himself as a non-globalist. He's got to sell himself as an economic nationalist in Pennsylvania, in Michigan,
How can he
in
do
Wisconsin.
that when his record for 40 years is the exact opposite.
Well, but you got to put that record in highlight. I mean, you got to drill every day. You ought to be all over him as for the trade deals, for all of this. So I think you just got to make sure the American people know that he's not going to be able to sell this. Look, Obama. The reason he's on the ticket with Obama was the Wall Street faction of the Democratic Party. Remember, Obama was a fire-breathing anti-war populist. That's how he won Iowa in those states, right? Hillary Clinton, remember, before she got blown up by Donald J. Trump, she got blown up by Barack Obama.
Oh, wait.
And the same thing. She ran against two populists, right? And she is the establishment. That's what. But the Democratic Party put Biden on the ticket because he's the Wilmington. I mean, he's the globalist. To keep an eye on the guy.
So he was the stabilizer.
Yeah, and also he's there to keep his eye on the store, and he was put in charge of the pivot to Asia. Obama knew strategically we had to get this Middle East thing. Time was over. We needed to move on, right? Unfortunately, that was $3.5 trillion into it, or it was another $2 trillion or $3 trillion spent on his watch, right? So it probably wasn't that much, maybe $1 trillion, $1.5 trillion. But my point is, he knew, as President Trump rails on, that $7 to $9 trillion we spent there. Obama knew we had to get out. Who they put in charge? Joe Biden. Joe Biden. They have the General Secretary Xi comes to the White House to sign that in that formal state visit. And there's two aspects of that deal: no cyber intrusions into American companies, and no militarization of the South China Sea. Ask your audience down in the Tidewater area, how's that worked out for us, right?
Not very well.
Not very well. The cyber intrusions increased. There's, I think, an FBI study increased by 50% 6 months after the deal was signed.
Unbelievable.
Okay, and that's when they really ramped up the militarization of the South China Sea. The reason you have the carrier battle groups now on patrol with this concept of free navigation, right? Not safe passage. Under the Obama administration, they went to safe passage, which means you go through the South China Sea, your guns aren't up, no radar, no fire control solutions. You're kind of going through as a good boy, right? Not upsetting the Chinese Communist Party. President Trump, it's free navigation. You go through as the United States Navy, and ships can go through there in a free thing. It's not their internal sea, as they keep saying. But those islands, and I said in 15, I think it was, that, hey, within 5 or I think it's 16, within 5 years, so we could be if we're ever in a shooting war, it's going to be over the South China Sea. That was Joe Biden was in charge of that. The reason that those islands got militarized, got built and militarized,
he let it go.
It was on his watch. Look, when Trump stopped the travel from China on January 31st, Biden takes the Beijing party line. It's xenophobic, it's racist, it's nativist. He's Beijing Biden. And to me, he's got to be called out and defend that. I don't think he's going to be able to defend it. That's why it's interesting of what I said on Squawk today. And I say this on War Room Pandemic all the time. Given the comprehensive nature of the Trump strategy has been laid out now over 4 weeks, from Phoenix speech of O'Brien all the way to the Nixon White House speech by Pompeo, this is pretty comprehensive. Crickets from the Biden campaign. Not one. Tony Blinken and Jake Sullivan. And Jake Sullivan, particularly Jake Sullivan, who was Hillary's senior, one on his campaign senior guy. It was probably the savviest guy from what I've heard about saying, hey, I see where Trump is going in Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. I see what every speech is about: managed decline, failed elites. Robbie Mook and these guys, oh, no, we're putting together a new coalition, right? We're going to spread the battlefield to Arizona, and we're going to spread the map. He was saying, go defend these. And we went. Jake Sullivan and these guys have been totally quiet. You haven't heard. They've rolled out Richard Haas, right? Richard Haas.
Of all people.
Yeah, another disaster. This one's a Republican disaster, but now he's the love child on Morning Joe every morning. My point is, watch Morning Joe, because that is the conventional wisdom of Washington, D.C. If you watch Morning Joe and do the exact opposite, the country will be fine, right? So that's why it's a must-watch show. Just watch it, right? And say, okay, we're going to do the exact opposite. You turn out great. Richard Haas sitting there, and here's what they're upset about. Exactly what the point of what we've been trying to do is that he says, hey, you can't separate out the CCP from China. It is China. No, that's not the case. There's 92 million people in the Chinese Communist Party, 1.4 billion Chinese, right? It's a totalitarian dictatorship. That's why, to me, he's not President Xi. He's General Secretary Xi. Mm-hmm. He's nothing more than what Gorbachev was, right? He's General Secretary of the Chinese Communist Party, right? Which, to me, is an illegitimate regime that is going to fall eventually. If we would take down the firewall and get them off the U.S. dollar, it would fall in 90 days to 6 months. Chinese people are going to get their freedom, and that's why it's so amazing about this conference. And the voices you're hearing, right? Martha Blackburn from Marsha Blackburn.
She was
from
fabulous. The white paper she put
white
out,
paper's incredible.
I read it yesterday afternoon. It's up on the internet, and then I interviewed her separately. That's an incredible piece of work.
Incredible piece of work. And this is what I think.
And I asked her, I'm like, when you talk to Chuck Schumer or you talk to your counterparts on the Democratic side, what do they say when you show them this? Like, what do they tell you? Why are they not able to come together on this? And she said it's just she said the environment now is so politicized, it's just tough to have a conversation.
But that's the listen, Nancy Pelosi used to be the fire breather on Tiananmen. She came into politics for the crickets. The reason is the Trump derangement syndrome is so strong. They also understand that this is the issue that could propel President Trump not just to a second-term victory, but to a second-term victory that had a motive force power in back of it.
A legacy.
And that's what they will not. That's why right now on Capitol Hill you won't hear a word from these people. They won't even address the topic.
So they're just going to let it go because they don't want it to help Trump.
The Trump,
the movement.
Trump derangement syndrome, I think, is now in this Capitol. That's why I think it's so interesting between the spread and the bid and the ask on the recovery bill. I won't call it a stimulus bill. The recovery bill is so broad, right? This is going to be an intense negotiation, I think, over the next.
What do you think they should do with it, Steve? Steve Bannon.
Here's what I think. Clearly, we have to focus on the balance sheet of the United States, and we have to focus on the U.S. dollar to keep it strong. We're in the middle of a crisis. To me, when you got to go through hell, go through it quickly as possible. Let's get this bill. Because it's not a stimulus bill, it's a relief bill. We still have issue with aggregate demand, the decline of that. We also have issue of people in employment and all these different things about full employment, okay? So somehow that's got to be worked out. And I think right now for Republicans particularly is we can worry about deficits after we're through this. The $3 trillion is obviously a political statement. It's not a realistic proposal. However, in that delta, we're not using the pandemic for what we should be using it for, which is a teaching moment. We still haven't brought back the supply chains to the United States. The central beating heart of what we can do to turn this thing around is make the United States the tip of the spear for the fourth industrial revolution. And just not for the research of it, not just from our great research universities, weapons labs, etc., whereas the Chinese Communist Party then steals the technology. Right on stage yesterday, I think it was Tom Cotton, said they steal it at a $600 billion a year. They've stolen $3 trillion of our intellectual property, just taking it, right? So not just to have the research universities like Virginia Tech and UVA do this great research and this taken, make the manufacturing around it. We should become the center of the fourth industrial revolution. You've got to bring the supply chains back. To do that, you've got to incentivize the company. Japan's doing this right now. A full expensing of capital expense to bring things back, but start to bring the supply chains back. President Trump today, I think Navarro is going to be up in Rochester. They're announcing a big thing driven by Rosemary Gibson, guest on your show and on War Room. Her idea of bringing back API. They're going to really make
from numbers.
Yes, from Gibson wrote China RX. Wrote China RX about the active pharmaceutical ingredients all being made in the Yangtze River Valley, right?
Of all places.
Is divine providence telling us something? I mean, they sent a plague from Chinese Communist Party sent us a plague. Now they're going to have a flood, a biblical flood. Flood hasn't happened in 2,000 years, and they've got locusts. So I think that this has all been preordained in a book I read one time. People ought to focus on that. But I think God is telling us something about the Chinese Communist Party. It's time that they shouldn't be around because everything that happens, it turns out to be bad. But no, I think that you got to quickly, and I think they'll be here all of August negotiating this deal. I think it's a long way to go. But then, because right now it's incumbent that you keep the White House and particularly keep the Senate. If we lose the White House and the Senate with the House,
it's done.
It's going to be, you're going to understand being in this is not going to be like being in opposition during the Obama years. This is going to be full force. You see what's happening in Portland. You see what's happening in Seattle. And it's going to be full force.
John Fredericks Radio Network Live, Stephen K. Bannon. You can follow him. Citizens for the American Republic. Also, Steve Bannon's War Room, 10 to noon, 6 days a week. John Fredericks Radio Network. Also on the Dish Network, AVN, Channel 219, and on our favorite show, Newsmax, 11 to midnight, Monday to Friday.
That's what the president tweeted out. President saw the Newsmax thing. He tweeted out. He tweeted the show last night.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're the only. And you should be you're a co-producer of the show.
Thank you.
Ours was the only one that didn't get pulled down by Twitter because they couldn't argue it was not scientifically based. And she's going to lead the show today. We've got Dr. Vliet is going to be on the show to kick it off and talk about the hydroxychloroquine.
And it is Lieutenant Bannon, by the way.
Yeah, that's right. You were a lieutenant. We always forget that.
That's right.
Yeah, and then that bothers me because you're always so respectful to other people's ranks. And when the Democrats, like Vlinman and someone impeachment, we have to give them the respect.
Stephen K. Bannon. He was on a destroyer.
On destroyer. Paul F. Foster, DD-964, and born in Norfolk, Virginia.
I know.
The naval capital of the world.
You guys were hunting Soviet nuclear submarines, right?
Fast attack submarines.
And now he's a pirate.
Full
Are you a pirate?
Full pirate. I'm leaving here today and going back to the ship. I haven't had so much time. I haven't had so much fun since I was in the Navy.
I know. Well, that's why you're always in a good mood now. But it's that water.
It's water. Water puts me in a good mood.
Steve, you nailed it there. We got to make it here. We don't just educate people here and have them steal it. We have to make it here.
Look, we got the greatest research. We got the greatest research universities, Silicon Valley, all of it. They've stolen $600 billion a year. It's going to continue until we stop it, and you got to manufacture here.
Well, but they've stolen the intellectual property too. We are going over there. They've stolen.
I was in charge of that for General Motors. So do I ever
engineers.
know? We gave it to them. Okay.
Two more questions. We got to go. First one is, if Biden doesn't debate, and I don't see why
he's not going to debate. No, it's zero.
Now, we still
zero chance.
Zero chance.
Zero.
So what is going to be the media reaction, and can we still win without him debating?
Look, to me, it's all about driving action. You're not going to get a debate, so you drive action. You just got to do every day. And my idea of action is a little different. I'm not crazy about going down to the briefing room and doing the briefings. I want the media to come in the Oval Office, sit around the Resolute desk. I want Fauci to be there every day with Birx and Redfield, with Pence and Meadows. But I want the president getting briefed by Dr. Fauci and telling Fauci, hey, Tony, write this down. I got a couple other reports I want to see overnight. I know you could pull an all-nighter, but come back. I mean, engage. Let media see that. I say the media loves Fauci. Let's give him a Fauci suppository, right? Hey, to have him in every day with the president as commander-in-chief at the Resolute desk, getting briefed on the pandemic, taking action on the pandemic, issuing directives on the pandemic, getting briefed by...
Hey, the guy can't throw a ball. I'm sorry.
Well, he can't throw a ball.
That's just
Steve pitched in high school.
Yeah, but they tell me Fauci. The news thing is because I was giving Navarro grief. They tell me Fauci was a great shortstop. I said, if you played Benedictine and we played Fauci's team, the thing would be hit to short. Right? I didn't see the arm. They said somehow he blew his arm out or something.
Marsha Blackburn said something to me that was stunning. She said there's 325,000 Chinese students here on student visas, and she says the majority of them, or she said a portion of those, are stealing us blind every single day, and they're in our colleges and universities. Can you elaborate on that?
Look, this is why this is not the Chinese people's fault. The Chinese people are the victims and the tools of this. This is a brutal regime, every bit as cold, calculating, and brutal and amoral as the Nazis. Okay. And we've got to start to focus on that. And we financed it. Remember, as Nixon said and Pompeo said, they're the Frankenstein monster we created. Our capital, our technology, our markets. As Miles Gore always says, when they signed the most favored nation in WTO in 1999, China's economy was barely over $1 trillion. They were, I think, a third or a fourth of the size of Japan. They're at, what? Either 13.5 to 16 trillion, however you calculate, but they're almost equal to us, right? How did that happen? We fully financed it. We gave them all the technology, right? Either let them steal it, buy it, or look the other way as corporations gave it to them. And we gave them access to the biggest market in the world for nothing. As they are mercantilists, this is all the guys, the Austrian School of Economic guys, the Adam Smith, free trade. Read Adam Smith. They're a totally mercantilist country. We can't get into their markets. This is what Lighthizer negotiated for so many months that they walked away from. So we've created the Frankenstein. The college kids are not the problem, okay? They're being used. Their billets are a problem because they have to basically agree to become a basic intelligence asset of the Chinese Communist Party. They got to report back every 30 days, and they're certainly in there giving information. So this is not anti-Asian, it's not anti-Chinese. I'm the most pro-Chinese guy in the world. I love China. It's about freeing the Chinese people. Once the Chinese people are free of the CCP, I don't mind having Asian students over here. I think it's fantastic. Now, what I don't like at land-grant universities or schools like that where you defer and take a guy paying $40,000 a year from overseas versus a kid that's going to pay, $15,000 a year as a state student, that kid should get priority into the engineering schools and into the tech schools. That's how we're going to I think, give African Americans, blacks, and Hispanics the full opportunity to get into the world of technology and high value added jobs in the fourth industrial revolution. But those kids today, they have to agree to, when they come over here to be financed by the state, they have to agree, there's a document, they have to agree to basically report in to a handler every Thursday. Now, some portion of them are actually Chinese intelligence officers. Yeah. Now, all of them are Chinese intelligence assets. They have to report back in. And so that's, to me, that we have to be all over that. It's not just, but by the way, the universities and the research university thing, it's the money that Harvard and these guys are taking billions of dollars from the Chinese Communist Party. The consulting firms that are around the weapons labs, and the weapons labs, you should understand, are not just for weapons in the United States, also a lot of stuff about climate change, a lot of stuff about the environment. Our weapons labs are literally the avant-garde, the vanguard. The vanguard of research and development. You've got consultants with Chinese Communist Party guys all around there. That we're infested with CCP guys in Wall Street firms, in corporations, in the universities. This is why the other day I answered the question, oh, you're just a neocon, you want regime change. I said, very different. That was where we were going to look for monsters to slay, as the founders told us not to do overseas. Here, it's inside the wire. This is the key thing out of Pompeo. Pompeo said the containment strategy of the Soviet Union can't work here. Because that was in a time that was a small economy, small demographics, didn't have a lot of technology, had a lot of weapons. You could physically contain it, and that's what Kennan's...
Stop their expansion. The expansion is already here. It's from within.
This is from within. This is why... This is the big...
You got to drive it out.
The biggest fight... What is Trump's biggest fights he's had on the trade deal or anything with China is with Wall Street. And the business community. And the Chinese-American Chamber of Commerce. Goldman Sachs. This is my point. What did Bill Barr call it? He called it appeasement, right? And they were collaborators by name. And then he said, hey, you better check this thing on the FARA regulations. American corporations should take that as a papal bull, okay? That Bill Barr actually used collaboration, appeasement, and, oh, by the way, FARA in sequence in the thing. That's not Steve Bannon doing some rant on War Room. Right. That's Bill Barr, a very serious guy, systematically laying it out what the problem is. It's corporate America, and it's Wall Street.
Stephen K. Bannon, thank you.